Dave, you have another question.
So much on the presidential level has talked about taxes, reforming taxes. What's the right way to go with this? And I'd like to know from both of you, Congressman Latham, starting with you. You remember your party's primary process. It went on and on and on, and they had 100 debates or whatever the heck they had. It felt like. Remember when the scene where nobody was willing to raise his hand to say that he would go for $10 worth of spending cuts for $1 in increased revenue. Is there any form of increased revenue you support?
What we need to do, and to get this economy growing again, is to, number one, extend the current tax law for a year. Give us a chance.
The way it is.
And give us a chance to do comprehensive tax reform. And what that means is to lower the rates. We have the highest corporate rates in the world today. We have some of the highest individual rates in the world today. We need to lower those rates, but we also need to look at all the loopholes that are out there. General Electric 2 years ago made $14.7 billion, did not pay one dime in taxes. It's not fair to everybody else who's out there working and paying a share into it. What we need to have is a blank sheet of paper as far as those loopholes are concerned. Write in exactly what is absolutely critical to maintain. If you start through the thousands of pages of the current tax code and try to pull the ones you don't like out of it, you never get the job done. You need to actually sit down and decide what is really important, what isn't, and you can actually increase revenues for two reasons. You're going to get rid of the loopholes, but also you're going to generate tremendous economic activity in this economy if, in fact, you had marginal tax rates that were lower and much more competitive worldwide.
You've heard the criticism against Governor Romney when he talks about loopholes, because we don't know what those loopholes are. We don't know what he wants to get rid of. So give us something that you would get rid of that actually works us in that direction.
Well,
is it housing, mortgage deduction, somewhere? What can we do?
You have to look at everything. I mean, whether oil and gas, whether all kinds of different tax breaks that are out there. It doesn't really matter, but you have to really sit down and figure out what is important, what's critical for the economy. I think mortgage interest deduction is very, very important. Do you need it on your fourth house? Maybe not.
Congressman? Well, it kind of sounds like we talked about everything, but except didn't answer your question. So I don't know if you're willing to raise the tax or not. I think if you signed a pledge that said you would not. I believe that's true, and I think you've told us that before.
Marginal rates. It has nothing to do with generating more revenue,
but
which
anyway,
we would do.
Anyway, well, that's debatable, and I would hope that there'll be some opportunities to do that, because there are some ways to do it. There was a commission that was put together called Simpson-Bowles, and it had quite a bit of time to work together and so on, and it was bipartisan. Simpson, somebody we all respected a lot, and Bowles was chief of staff for President Clinton, and so we finally had a chance to vote on a version of that, which was actually do some efficiencies, do some cuts, but be willing as necessary to raise some revenue, and they were thinking probably about those making $250,000 up adjusted gross. Well, we had a chance to vote on a version of that, and so we did, but I voted for it. Tom did not. I would guess less than perfect, but at least a template to start a process, and those that did vote on it was pretty much half and a half Republican and Democrat, which I thought was a good indication of trying to get something off center and get going.
Congressman Latham, Congressman Boswell was one of only 38 in the House who voted for Simpson-Bowles, and a lot of Republicans are now criticizing President Obama for not taking hold of an offer where you could lead Simpson-Bowles and what was laid out in Simpson-Bowles and take more of an aggressive nature for Simpson-Bowles. So why did you vote against it?
Well, it wasn't Simpson-Bowles to start with. It was a version of it, quite different actually. It was about $2 trillion of tax increases, $3 trillion of additional spending. It increased Social Security taxes. It cut Social Security benefits up to almost 10%. Increased co-pays for the individuals in Medicare and Medicaid, in Medicare, and also the co-insurance costs. So, I mean, there are some things that in that, when you talk about what it does to seniors, I think is very, very detrimental.
Well, the point of it is that, maybe if whatever, it was a template to start a process, taking reductions, taking some reductions, maybe 2 to 1 or whatever, but willingness to say, well, we're going to have to raise some revenue here, but
Increase
we
the debt by $1 trillion.
And we had no final product, so we'll be able to say what it was. You don't know, I don't know, and nobody else knows. But a process to use something that was discussed bipartisanly, voted on bipartisan. Let's start with this. Amend, adjust, put it through the whole thing, and it didn't happen. Now, you mentioned it didn't come from President Obama. Well, it didn't come out of the majority party on either the Senate or the House, as far as that goes, to start something, and it could have started from there. It needs to happen. Something needs to happen to quit the bickering around and let's get something going.
We need to take another break, and we'll continue our discussion of this